It is my pleasure to present Shelly Blair, and she is, her talk is going to be how development has affected wildlife in El Dorado County.
Louder.
Really?
Yes. Louder.
Yes. Okay. Shelly was born and raised in El Dorado County. She lived in Garden Valley. She went to El Dorado High and married a friend of ours. And she loved the outdoors and animals, and she had a teacher who responded to that, felt it, and she helped guide Shelly into what she is doing today. Shelly spent 5 years as the state food and in the state food and agriculture department. The last 14 years she has been working as a biologist in California Department of Fish and Wildlife. She is the wildlife biologist for El Dorado County, Alpine, and Sacramento counties. Please welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to come talk to you about something that I am extremely passionate about. So I'm going to start just by introducing myself a little more. I grew up in a fish and game family. My dad was a game warden in El Dorado County for a very long time and retired here. He also grew up in El Dorado. So this is my home, my community. I have a passion for this community. I've raised my kids here, stayed here, and now I have the opportunity to do natural resource work in the community. So I grew up hunting and fishing. I enjoy hunting and fishing. I am a hunter ed instructor for, I like to teach youth hunter education courses. So that's one of my passions. I graduated from the California State University of Chico. And like Nancy said, I thought I was going to get a job with Fish and Game right away, but the Department of Food and Agriculture hired me in their wildlife services program, and I learned a lot about wildlife conflict in the first 5 years of my career. And then I was eventually picked up with the Department of Fish and Wildlife. I worked in the wildlife health lab for a long time, dealing with wildlife diseases throughout the state, and then had the very unique and wonderful opportunity to get this position as the unit biologist in the county that I live in and I love. So, so that's a little bit of my history and background, and this is just some pictures of some interesting things that I've been involved with, a lot of different captures and mountain quail studies, and I respond to deer welfare issues. And this is an interesting picture up here. This is my young daughter at the time. I was actually taking a brainstem from an elk head, and it was a Bring Your Daughter to Work Day apparently, because there she is watching her Cinderella video eating goldfish as I'm doing that. So my kids grew up, had some really unique experiences as well, which is really cool. So today I'm going to be talking to you about our county, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to break up my presentation in different groups of species that I particularly deal with. My main focus is game species. However, I do dabble in non-game species like bats and other things, but that's my main focus. But you know, as you know, we live in this amazing, beautiful county. We have the iconic Lake Tahoe Basin, miles of beautiful oak woodlands, forests, rivers, creeks. We have this historic gold history. We do have a population of 191,843 humans. So you can imagine that could create a little problem with our natural resources here. Lots of rural ranchettes, lots of hobby farming, people wanting to, you know, raise goats and sheep and do 4-H projects and that kind of thing. And then we have this agricultural dreamland with Apple Hill and all the vineyards. And I mean, truly, we just are so blessed to live in such an incredible county. But with that comes some conflict, and that's some of the stuff that I'm going to be focusing on. Is when we live in these areas that are right next door to natural resources, we have conflict. And all of these incidents, these pictures here are actually in El Dorado County. So, you know, we have, I think this is Greenstone, we have deer that are frequenting neighborhoods, and unfortunately they get wrapped up in stuff when they're nearby houses that we have to respond to. This is El Dorado Hills. We have, and I'll talk about these things later, but you know, we have beaver issues, flooding roads and trails and stuff like that. This is Lake Tahoe, lots of bear damage and significant property damage happening in Lake Tahoe. I will discuss that too. And then of course we have the mountain lions, and this is actually on the back porch of a house in El Dorado Hills. This is a deer that this lion has killed right there. So we are in close connection and quarters with wildlife and significant wildlife in our county, which is amazing. We love to see wildlife, but unfortunately some of human behaviors have caused it to be quite a conflict. So first off, and I will ask for questions at the end of each species, because I think I might answer some questions as I go. So I'll stop at each species that I go over and then and ask for questions then. So the mule deer, we have mule deer in California. We do not have white-tailed deer in California. Some people get that mixed up. But we also have this subspecies we call the black-tailed deer. They're smaller than the big mule deer, like in the Sierra Nevada mountains. The blacktails are a subspecies of the mule deer. And so just their distribution. This is kind of an older map, and with genetics, they're finding out different ways that the deer are genetically different, but in the past they've been broken up into all these different subspecies, and this is kind of a map showing the different subspecies of deer in California. What I want to emphasize is that there's a difference between resident deer and migratory deer. So resident deer are probably the deer you're seeing in your yards. These deer have probably a home range of about a mile, and they raise their young where they're at, they eat there, they drink there, they spend all of their time year-round there. They don't have a need to migrate, so we call those resident deer. The migratory deer is up near, in the Placerville area, is up near the Crystal Basin. That's their summer range. They're called the Pacific deer herd. And those deer do migrate down into Swansboro, Georgetown, Pollock Pines. So they're moving, and they're just different, the different habits that they have, right? They're just behaving very differently, even though they're the same species. So just a little bit about the biology. Their average lifespan is 6 to 7 years, they think. They mate in late November and December, and you probably know that the rut happens. About October, the males get very aggressive. They get these big necks, and they start getting these hormone dumps because it's gonna be mating season soon. So when you see those in your yards, probably good to keep your dogs up and stay away, because we've had incidents where these very aggressive males have killed dogs, and so that's something to be aware of. The young are born in early summer, and there's usually twins. And usually the young in the resident herds kind of start popping up earlier than the migratory herds. So like you'll see them in late May, June, but in the migratory herds you might see them more in July. So they can also just have fawns. They go into estrus multiple times during their breeding. So if you see fawns that are small later in the year, in fact, we had a picture of one off the Camino underpass of a fawn in September, a tiny spotted fawn in September, and that's very, very late. So that can happen. They stay with their mother for the first year. They are herbivorous browsers, so they are only eating grasses and browse. And the buck antlers grow velvet. I'm sure you guys have seen their velvet. Right now they're probably in velvet. That velvet is a vascular tissue that gets very itchy, and so when they start to get really irritated, they want to rub that velvet off. And I don't know, maybe some of you have seen that velvety stuff stripping off. It looks kind of bloody, and but then once they rub it off, they have these beautiful antlers, and they do this every year. It's surprising to me, not a lot of people know that, but they lose their antlers every year and regrow them. So it's quite magnificent. And their eyesight is sensitive to moving objects. So this is the major problem we have with the interface between humans and deer. And so why should you not feed deer? So first and foremost, it is against the law. Feeding big game deer is illegal by our California code, Title 14, and the county just passed an ordinance in our county that is restricting deer feeding as well. That deer was never included in that, but they're doing that so that the wardens can now cite people for an infraction. Right now, if you feed deer and get cited, it's a misdemeanor. So that's the first reason why. And people ask me all the time, like, why in the world is the feed store selling deer chow, right? Well, they can do that. We can't hinder them from doing that, and a lot of people buy this. We've tried to talk to them, but they're making money off of that, so we don't have any authority to tell them they can't do it, even though it's illegal here in California. Feeding wildlife, particularly deer, it congregates them in a manner that is unnatural. If you know neighbors that are feeding deer, you probably have a large amount of deer in your yards, and that is not natural. They shouldn't be congregated like that. Then when they're consistently fed, deer will overbrowse their surroundings and they negatively impact their native habitat. A lot of people feed them the wrong thing. They throw out corn or whatever, that they don't have the digestive system to digest that properly. We've seen deer die from people feeding them the wrong thing. So these wild animals are extremely resilient. They know how to find food. We don't need to help them find food. They are perfectly capable of doing that. The other thing I wanted to mention is that congregating them spreads disease. Usually when we have disease outbreaks in our county, it's usually in HOAs or areas where deer feeding is happening, and then you get this stuff kind of happening. So these are just fibromas. They're like a wart on the deer, and they're very highly contagious. So you can imagine if you are congregating a bunch of animals and one of them has these, then they're spreading that. There's also adenovirus, which is a hemorrhagic disease that if they're congregating, they get that, they get sick, thin, die, and we have these huge die-offs because of it. And then I don't know how many of you know, but chronic wasting disease is a very serious and fatal disease that we never had in California until this year. A few months ago, we detected our first 2 chronic wasting disease deer in California. So that is another reason why it's so important not to congregate these deer, because this is going to be a detriment to our herds if we're doing this stuff. So. And then also just increasing the likelihood of vehicle collisions, because when we're feeding them, they're in our neighborhoods and they're walking across roads and they're more likely to get hit by a car, which we don't want to happen. So basically, this is some of the negative consequences. We're killing them with kindness. These are examples that I've dealt with. Bucks every year in the rut, especially because they're not very smart when they're in breeding. They get tangled in hammocks and ropes, in chains, in electric fencing, in Christmas lights, and then we're called out to respond to these incidents. And when we respond to these, we always kind of weigh the negative to because we have to drug these animals in order to help them get this stuff off of them. And so, as with people, drugs affect people differently, and sometimes drugging them is more stressful and causes more injury to the animal than actually. Sometimes we just let them live with this stuff on their antlers because we know that the antlers are going to fall off eventually. And that is probably the better course of action rather than to stress the animal out and drug it and do all that other stuff. If you live in a neighborhood where you see a tagged deer, that's probably what happened to that animal. It was probably hung up in something. Every time we do drug an animal, we have to tag it so that people know that it could potentially have drug in it. So that's something to look out for in your neighborhoods. But these are just these are all incidents of being around houses and getting into things in people's yards. This one has a coffee can over its head, and as you can see, it's trying to get bird seed. This one has I think it's a little pipe over its hoof there. And then this is just an example of some of the die-offs that we see, just really thin animals that are dying. But yeah, so. And then just wanted to do a quick mention, our Fish and Wildlife Commission for El Dorado County just helped draft this great brochure about wildlife-friendly fencing. A lot of people come to our county not just having no idea when they're planning their houses and their fencing for their houses, how just choosing the right type of fence can make all the difference in the world. So it's very popular in some neighborhoods to have these spiked fences, and that is very difficult for deer because they get impaled when they try to go over it. And there's a pretty good remedy to that, just capping those spikes. But also these wrought iron fences, these deer get stuck inside of them a lot of the times. So this brochure is to help. This is at our ag office, our county ag office. It has this. It's on the websites. Also, our county planning. Anybody that's coming in to get advice from our planning department, they're handing these things out now. So we're just trying to educate people on how to better choose better fencing, and maybe not even fencing at all, because whenever you fence an area, you're inhibiting movement of the animals. So I think that's all I have on deer. So are there any questions? Yes?
I heard that there was mad cow disease in deer also.
So he asked if there was a mad cow disease in deer, and that is what chronic wasting disease is. So it's, in cows it's called that, in humans it's something different, I can't pronounce it. In sheep it's called scrapies. So that, just different names, but similar type of disease in those species, yeah. Yes?
What do you do about poaching?
What do you do about poaching? So we have a CalTIP number with our department, and I don't think I have it in my presentation. I can get it for you. But whenever you see active poaching happening, you can call our CalTIP number. That goes to our warden dispatch, and that goes directly to our law enforcement division. The local officers, if they can, they'll try to respond immediately and catch those people in the act. We are attempting with our Fish and Game Commission as well to get the DA to get bigger consequences to some of the poaching cases we have in our county, because I think we got the reputation that you can get away with it here, and that's just not the case, right? So we want strong consequences to that kind of behavior. But there is quite a lot of poaching happening, especially in our deer. I had a collaring project in 2015 to 2020, where I GPS collared a bunch of the Pacific herd, and I had 4 of my does poached. And so that's that. Out of 40 animals collared, 4 of them poached. That's 10%, So, so that does happen, unfortunately. So if you guys can be eyes and ears out there and report that, we would appreciate that for sure. Yeah.
Now that the county, at least the El Dorado County disposal, is asking us to put our food waste in with the green waste, we are getting bears on our property. Mm-hmm. And in the last 2 weeks, we've seen this bear that we at a glance looked like a big bear, and then it's been back several times since. It broke into the food that was the koi food that was in our garage. Mm-hmm. Broke into the bag and ate that. So. And I got a good look at the deer or the bear that was doing that. I realized it was a youngster. Mm-hmm. And I decided that I should call Sierra Wildlife and ask them how to deal with it. Mm-hmm. And it was just after hours, and so they transferred me. The person I talked to transferred me to someone named Ann Bryant, who knew about bears. And she said there's a bearwise.org website, and she said do not feed the bears, and to call the disposal company and ask them if we can get a bear safe container for our waste.
Yeah, that's good advice. the waste disposal does offer that to certain areas of the county, not everybody that is offered to. And when they rolled out that program to have bear-proof canisters, they didn't have enough. So because I think Pollock Pines is one of the areas, I'm not sure where you live. I don't know if it extends down to Camino, but that is a good idea. But also all of your food, the koi food, the problem with the yearling bears is they're just trying to figure stuff out. If they get a food reward, they will continue to come back unless they get a negative response. And so sometimes, honestly, you have to have like electrified fencing over stuff in order to give them a shock to get them to leave the area. Because the compost is a huge issue, and the rural counties recognize that. They're trying to work with the refuge companies in California to remedy that for these rural counties because it's a big issue.
Suggested getting old rags and soaking them in ammonia and laying them over the top of the barrel.
Yeah, that will work for a while. There's some bears that will just not even care, especially if they've had a nice food reward. They will go right through that.
Well, I thought the young ones were starving, and she said, "Oh no, there's plenty of food out there in nature.
Yeah.
They don't need to be eating."
Yeah, and I'll go into that a little bit when I talk about bears because I'm going to talk about that a lot actually. So yeah, I mean, yes.
Where was the chronic waste disease found in California, and was it with deer?
Yes, we had 2 positive deer, one in Mono County from a roadkill deer and the other one in Madera County near Yosemite Lake. And now our state Fish and Game Commission passed an emergency regulation for mandatory testing of all hunter harvested deer in those zones. And we're trying to ramp up testing and surveillance so we can detect it. Because now that it's here, and it's probably been here a while, it takes 18 months for the deer to show symptoms. So they're shedding the disease for 18 months, and they look completely healthy on the landscape. That's what's so scary about chronic wasting disease. So we're definitely ramping up things. This is very bad news for our deer in California. Yeah.
I live near a high kill area along Highway 50. So there was a time when there was a kill during the night that the animals were picked up. The heads and horns were left, but the animals, and is there a law against that?
There is.
I should say, not picked up by county.
Great.
Repeat the question.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. She's stating that there's a place on Highway 50 a while ago that people were taking the carcasses off the road, and it wasn't the county DOT doing that. So there was a regulation, or it wasn't a regulation, it was a proposition passed that allows you to pick up roadkill. However, there was no mechanism to permit that. So even though that passed through our legislation, there was no mechanism to make it happen. So you still legally cannot do that. So yeah, that is an illegal thing right now to take those animals. And I know some people just saw off the antlers of big bucks that have been killed on the road. It's really hard to prosecute that unless there's a witness and video, and I don't even know what consequences they would get from that. So yeah. Any other deer questions? Yeah.
I was near the post office, and a young fawn had just been been hit, and it was suffering. And I was wondering, who do you contact? Who do you call? The lady about the 4th car back had a gun, and she shot it to keep it from suffering, which I was grateful for.
Yeah.
But is that the only resource for injury?
So fawns, the Sierra Wildlife Rescue, Dave Cook, they deal a lot with the fawns, and honestly, that was the most humane thing for that animal. So yeah, so that's a good outcome. And I mean, it's not a good outcome, but it's the most humane one. Yeah. But they deal with fawns. So the older adult deers, they can't rehab adult deer. A wild animal cannot be rehabbed. So we typically, our agency gets called for that. So that's what I mean by animal welfare issues. We will respond to those issues of injured animals. But our local law enforcement, sheriff's department and police department, they will come out and euthanize animals as well. if they're suffering, because a lot of times we can't get to them. So, but the fawns, the Sierra Wildlife Rescue
Okay.
would be the ones to call.
I've been to see the facility that he has there.
Yeah, Dave's amazing. Yeah, he's a huge help to our agency.
They can't do much for a fawn that has a broken leg, can they?
No, they can't.
That's what I thought.
No.
Of course.
Yeah,
Broken leg.
yeah.
What kind of fencing is that on the lower left?
This one here,
Yeah.
that's just wire fencing with T-posts.
Wow.
Yeah,
Because I mean, you know, for the vegetable garden, it's wire fencing with teeth.
right, right.
Is there any way to avoid that? You know, like.
Do you want to comment,
Or-
Kathy is actually one of the ex-commissioners that helped with this brochure. Do you want to, and she's passionate about this. So.
Well, I'm scheduled to give a talk on this on fencing in February. But at any rate, some of the wire fencing that you see.
Kathy, you stand up and talk to me.
Regarding wire fencing, so the height of the fence is usually important. If a deer is likely to jump over it, those top two wires are very important because if they're loose or they're too close together, the way a deer jumps, their feet kind of go like this. I can't do it. Like this, and then they go like that. Well, if their hoof catches the wire a certain way, it twists over as they go over the fence, and it snares them. It just snares them like that, very tightly, and they can't get free. And they will hang if it's a tall fence, or they just get snagged and stuck there, and then they're vulnerable to any of the animals coming by. So it happens. It's just trying to make people aware of it is very important. Barbed wire is oftentimes not necessary in our county or for anything. We don't have cattle, but any kind of wire can do that. So
Does it help to put like colored flags on
it
it?
helps if you want to make them aware that there's a wire there. But still, if the wires are loose, and what I do is I carry zip ties with me, and if I see old, dilapidated, neglected fences that are wire, I'll just tie the wire together. So that, you know, if any animal tries to go over it, they're not going to get snared. That's all.
Over here?
I've heard that if deer die on your property, it's your problem. And so people try to pick them up on the road so that it's your problem. Can you talk to that point?
Yeah, so on state highways, the Caltrans maintenance people will pick up deer, and then on county roads, the county Department of Transportation will pick up those deer. But yes, that's true. If a deer dies on your property, if you call the local biologist, I like to get samples of dead deer to test for some of these diseases to see what's going on. But I have so many duties in 3 counties to cover, so a lot of times logistically I can't get out there. So unfortunately, people have to either leave them for the scavengers or bury them themselves. Yeah, we don't want carcasses moved around because of this chronic wasting disease. So that's going to be a really important thing to remember. Not moving them, dumping them somewhere else, but yeah, that's kind of how it works. That's why people drag them to the road. Yes.
We've been on our property 34 years, but there's still some old barbed wire along the outside. So if we cut the barbed wire and roll it, is there a place or a time or we can take that barbed wire, get rid of it?
I don't know if the dump has a place for that. I'm sure you can dispose of it somewhere. Yeah. Oh, sorry. She asked about barbed wire. If she has old barbed wire on her property, if she just wrapped it up, where could she dispose of the wiring? And I would think the dump would take that wiring.
All the first one.
Yeah. Yes.
Are there any particular signs to watch for like a deer that might be diseased? Like I've got the plastic filter in my backyard.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, when you say congregate, sometimes I'll see 7 does and 4 babies. Is that too much?
Well, I mean, you don't have control over what they're doing because they are wild animals, and you know, there's a lot of neighborhoods where people are feeding them, so It's a difficult situation, but yeah, as far as like symptoms of a diseased animal, lethargy, sometimes they're drooling, head down, ears kind of like low. Sometimes they have like diarrhea down their tail and back legs. That last picture, some of them get really thin like this. I've had deer though that look perfectly healthy that crawl in someone's barn and die. But when I open them up, sometimes there's lungworm that they pass away from, or that hemorrhagic disease that. So and they get pneumonias. I mean, they get other things than the regular diseases. And if they're immune compromised, they're not eating the right things. That tends to happen. They will get parasite loads and just succumb to that kind of stuff too. Yeah, there's lots of stuff. Yeah. So, all right. Am I moving on to mountain lions? All right. The mountain lion. So this is our cat in our county. Just some of the physical characteristics in biology. They have long, heavy legs, large feet, and the tail as long as the body. That's kind of a significant distinguishing feature. I get a lot of calls of mountain lion sightings, and that's the first thing I ask is how long was the tail? And if they say, oh, it was little bobtail, that's a bobcat. Or, if the tail is as long as the body and it's kind of a tawny color, then that's probably a mountain lion. Their males range from 115 to 170 pounds. Females are a little smaller. The cubs are spotted with rings on their tail, so this is, a little cub. And they actually carry their spots like upwards of a year. They still kind of look spotted a little bit. There's no fixed mating season. The young are born throughout the year. Gestation is 82 to 98 days. They have 2 to 4 in a litter, and then they usually disperse at 12 to 18 months. And one of the things in our county is these photographs of these mountain lion packs that are hunting together, and they're all adults. These are animals that have a female with their young still. So they're probably like 18-month-old cats that are still with mom. That's what you're seeing on a lot of those photos. So, yeah, and then the dark spots for about 18 months, and then the little ones, they're so adorable. Did you guys hear about the one picked up in Camino recently? There was a kitten that was orphaned in the middle of the road in Camino, and now is in, and that, that's an unfortunate thing because that animal can never be released to the wild. It needs wild parents to teach it how to live. So it'll be in a zoo for the rest of its life. But, something interesting about the scat and tracks, if you live on, have land and want to know if you have a mountain lion. So the mountain lion's scat, it usually has hair and bone in it. That's really a huge indicator that is a mountain lion. There's no berries or anything like that. They are strictly carnivores, so they're typically always eating deer. So they're going to have deer bones and hair and stuff. And sometimes they partially bury it or leave it exposed as a scent post. And the tracks are interesting. It's 4 toes, but they're very round. A dog's print is going to be more oval, and I should have put a picture in here, but more oval. And the other thing to remember is that cats retract their claws. So if you see a print with claws, it's not a lion. It's a cat, because they don't walk with claws out. They retract their claws. And then this I always remember lion tracks because there's this 3-lobed bottom, and it looks like an M for mountain lion. So if you see a track that's pretty big and has a 3-lobed bottom, then that's probably a mountain lion. So just to give you a little background, mountain lions, and I'll talk about this a little bit, they are specially protected, and it wasn't until 2015 that the Department of Fish and Wildlife actually decided to get a mountain lion conservation program going. And they are coordinating statewide research, population monitoring. Most of this research is happening down in Southern California. You've probably heard of the famous P22 mountain lion and the Hollywood sign, and all that stuff going on down there. So a lot of work has been focused on that area. They work with multiple external state, federal, and academic and non-governmental partners. The key objectives, and what I'm hoping kind of moves further up the northern counties of California is habitat suitability, demographics, and population abundance. There's a lot of population numbers being thrown around. Honestly, we have no idea what the populations are. I mean, these population numbers are based on a small amount of sampling and then extrapolated in models. And so we have an estimate, but really we don't really know how many. There's a lot of connectivity barriers to movement, and obviously a lion living in LA in Griffith Park is going to have a lot more barriers than some lion up here. Lions do get hit by cars off of Highway 50 and other places, but you don't see it as often. I mean, they're getting hit all the time in Southern California. There's also this disease surveillance. There was a project that they took the samples of mountain lions that we had taken, like blood samples, and realized that many of these lions are exposed to pesticides. They have a lot of pesticides residues, and because they eat mammals, and mammals go around houses, and people have pesticides around their houses. So anyways, so that's one thing they're concerned about. And then just their ecological relationship with other taxa, which means basically like how are they interacting with their prey species? What is their population numbers? How is that affecting deer and elk and bighorn sheep and all the things that they eat? And then this human dimensions thing, as you are probably aware, is becoming a huge study in mountain lions because people are very passionate about mountain lions. They are beautiful, elegant creatures. But they also are very scary and can do a lot of damage. So this is kind of the history of mountain lions in California. There was a bounty system between 1907 and 1963. About 12,000 mountain lions were killed. Then in 63, they were a non-protected mammal, and then they became a game mammal species in 69 and 72, which regulated their hunting. And then they became a protected mammal, so there was a hunting moratorium. And they think that the population was around 500 to 1,000. And then they became a game mammal again, but no hunting. And then in between 1986 and 1990, they were specially protected, absolutely no hunting. In 1992, I think, California passed a proposition to make them specially protected. So that wasn't based on science, that was based on people's votes of California. That was not based on biology, but that's what happens, in legislation when propositions like that get on the ballot. So really encourage you voting members to research a lot of those different propositions when you're voting that. And then again, the 2015, the Mountain Lion Conservation was established within our agency. And now there is a petition on this to make them endangered on the Central Coast and Southern California populations. And so that you could see how, I feel like we're existing in two different realms, right? We have the Southern California issues, and then we have the Northern California issues. And our issues are very different because, as I mentioned before, we are a very rural county that has a lot of hobby farms and people and ranchettes, and we live amongst wild areas that these animals can thrive in. So there lies the conflict. We did a genetic study on all of our lion samples. So law requires us to do a necropsy on every mountain lion that is killed by depredation. And depredation permits are just permits given to people to allow them to kill the animal that's causing property damage. So we had a lot of samples, and this is kind of what they came up with. There's these different genetics happening within our populations, and they're indicated by the colors. So ours would be the Western Sierra Nevada population, this blue here. These are all the related animals that they tested. And then you have these subpopulations in Southern California, probably because of the connectivity issues. They're not able to cross genetics because of roads and various other things. And mountains, the Sierra Nevada mountains, lions can go over them, but we have this distinct Nevada population, and so it's just genetics is really interesting research being done in a lot of wildlife species right now. What we thought we knew, we didn't really know. So it's an exciting time. So we have a mountain lion policy currently, and it's in our Fish and Game Code, and it mandates the use of non-lethal measures. So it basically states, unless authorized, non-lethal procedures shall be used when removing or taking any lion. It's the code section is 4810, and it concerns the take of depredating lions. So depredation just means the property damage. So they're killing sheep, lions, goats, dogs. That's what they're depredating on. So they get a law enforcement can also designate the animal as being an imminent threat to public safety. And so that the biologists don't do that. The wardens are the ones that do that. So this is kind of how the process goes. There's a confirmation of the incident, has to be completed within 48 hours. So resident has a goat killed, they contact us, we have to respond within 48 hours. We go out and see if it is in fact a lion kill, because there's other things that kill livestock like bears, domestic dogs, coyotes. So we have to verify that it's a lion, or the county trappers verify that. Then we can issue a non-lethal depredation permit, which means that we basically tell the homeowner that they have to haze the animal if it comes back. Hazing could be yelling and screaming if it comes back, or playing a radio to deter it from coming into your property. So there's various degrees of hazing. We are now utilizing one of our trappers in El Dorado County has dogs. So we're trying to use dogs as hazing, and that seems like the most effective. Once a cat is chased by a dog, it doesn't want to be in the area anymore. So then the lion has to kill again for a homeowner to get issued a lethal permit. And then that time, that just gives that person the authority to kill the lion. So they contact us, and then we submit a wildlife incident report, and I'll show you that in a second. We always do outreach on mitigation and deterrence. And this is our wildlife incident reporting, and anybody can access this for any reason. Like if you see a wildlife sighting, if you have any property damage or any issue with wildlife, you can go to this website and report that, and it automatically goes to the right person to respond to you. So that's a really great resource to have if you have wildlife issues. We're reporting sightings. There's really no trapping or relocation, but that's changing because we're trying to get research GPS collars on lions. So we've collared 2 lions, I think, or 3 in the last year or so to see how they would respond to hazing. We want to test what hazing works. And then if you are in immediate danger, always call 911. And then reporting, you can also call the El Dorado County Ag Office. And then also we have a conflict hotline now that we use. So these are some of the deterrents that we tell people to try. Physical deterrence is fencing and barriers, so secured enclosures, no visual of the animal, so complete enclosed barns. Sound can be, motion activated alarms or radios, and this is something that I think is brilliant. The Halloween or Christmas things that are motion activated and they start singing and dancing. Like we've found that those work great, and sometimes those things go on clearance. And so you buy them on clearance. I mean, they're annoying, but if you're trying to save your animals, they do work because the animals don't like that at all. So that's a deterrent too. AM, FM radios is voices, so it's trying to mimic like human voices. And lions are typically elusive animals; they don't want to be around humans. So that works to some degree. For some animals, it will not. So all these animals have their own personalities, so some of them may not be deterred by that. And then motion activated lights, and we're trying to flaggery, which is just flags, like fencing flags around. We don't know if that's working yet. This is still kind of being tested. And then sometimes we suggest livestock guardian dogs, but that That is a huge commitment for somebody to invest in a livestock guarding dog. In order to get one, it's very, like a good one, it's very expensive. And these dogs are not pets. They are strictly to guard the livestock, and they can be very aggressive towards other dogs. And for neighbors, they're annoying because they bark all the time. And so, this really is not a great suggestion for everybody. It does work, but it's a huge investment to ask people to put into something. So, so just to mention a lion kill. So sometimes we see this where a lion will get in a pen and just like go crazy and just kill all the animals in the pen and leave and never come back. And what we think is happening here is like, it's just like a killing frenzy. They get in the hunt mode, and these animals are running all over the place, and they're just like frantic in the pen. So that's hard to see. So typically they are killing deer. They have neat, clean cuts or slashes. When a coyote kills, it is tearing and ripping, and it looks very crazy. It's not, a lion it's like a surgical incision. Their teeth are so sharp, and they usually, surgically like open up the belly and take the liver and stuff out first. So that's one way we can tell what killed the animal. Also, the bite marks on the bottom of the neck is pretty typical of a lion. Coyotes tend to go to the back of the neck, but lions do that too. So, but that's one of the things we use to try to figure it out. They also drag their prey. So if there's drag marks, they'll drag it to an area and then they cover it up. So this is a picture of a deer that I had collared, that I responded to the mortality collar, and you can see it's completely buried by all of this debris. That is very typical of cats. Bobcats will do this too, but lions will always try to bury or cache their kill and then come back to it. So that's an indication it's a lion as well. If we see that, we're pretty sure it's a lion. And again, like with a bear or a coyote kill on livestock, it's very messy. It's not as nice and neat as lions are. And we're also looking for scat and tracks during the kill site as well to determine what got it. So reducing attractants, it's a shared effort. We all need to do our part because these lions are just trying to exist and live in their natural environment. So limit free-ranging animals. I know this is a dilemma and a tension because there's a lot of people that are getting goats and sheep for fire reduction purposes, right? And what we're seeing is, you may put your animals up at night and then let them out in the morning, but these cats are killing them in the daytime now. So we want to encourage goats and sheep for fire reduction purposes, but there's a chance that a lion is going to get to them. Lions will kill cats. I don't know. I have a picture of a lion laying on a deck. It was chasing a cat that almost went through the cat door into the house, chasing that cat. So yeah, keeping your cats indoors. It also helps save wild birds. I'll just put that plug in too. And then appropriately discarding the carcasses, so burying or taking it to the landfill so that cat doesn't want to come back and kill again or confront you. And then appropriately secured enclosures. So this is an example of fencing. So you can see this lion easily jumps over. They can grab a huge animal, like a goat or a sheep, and jump over this fence like it's nothing. Very, very strong animals. So the suggestion is to put this overhanging thing on your fences so that to deter climbing. And then just as much enclosed area as you can, putting your chickens up in the box at night. And then just the visual, like this one isn't ideal because we've had cats get into enclosures like that because they can see the animals. So like even if there's a tiny little opening in the top, they'll get right through that. So yeah, just if you're gonna have animals like this, highly recommend complete enclosures. So there's mountain lions. Yes.
What is the natural non-human predator of a mountain lion? What gets them?
So what the question was what is the natural predator of lions? There is none. It's interesting that we're finding out more about how bears and lions interact, and what we're seeing is lions will make a kill on a deer in the wild, and the bear will come in and steal that kill, and the lions will just move off and never come back. So that's kind of the dynamic we're seeing with bears and lions. There's really no other predator for lions except vehicles and humans. Yeah, and disease. Some of them get disease. So, any other questions? Yeah.
Because there have been so many more sightings recently, do you have a sense of the population in this side of Colorado?
We do not know population numbers. Yeah. What's that? Oh, the question was, do you know the population of mountain lions in this county? No. No, and if somebody tells you a number, they don't know. We don't have enough research to be able to even start to understand what the population is. The sightings are interesting because we have a lot more ability to see. A lot of people have game cameras now, Ring cameras on their houses. So it's been said that the population hasn't increased. We just are able to see them more, and there's more on Facebook. So it seems like there's more. The thing that's concerning to me as a biologist is that we're seeing them more during the day, and we're seeing them more on your porches and on your walkways, and that never happened in the past. They were very elusive. They were more nocturnal. And so I think the behavioral thing is what is concerning to me. And their home ranges, again, we need to get collars on these animals to understand. A male's home range should be 100 square miles. That's not happening anymore. So they're obviously overlapping home ranges. And a lion will kill another lion. We just had that happen actually over in Yuba County. We had a collared lion that was killed by another lion. So when they are competitive, there's competition. They follow the deer herds, and guess what? There's a lot more deer in residential areas right now. There's a lot more groceries down here than there are in the mountains. So there's going to be your predators, right? So we just don't know. We don't have enough information to give a number. So yeah.
The county is entertaining a 8,000 unit development south of Highway 50. Did they ever confirm with you about giving them any information as to migratory paths or anything like that, so they can enter that into the mitigation process if the projects go forward?
So the question is, there's a big development happening on south of 50, and she's asking if our department engages with the county planning to inform about connectivity and different things. So yes, we have a habitat conservation unit that is strictly gets notified of these developments and then reviews those plans, those environmental impact reports. And luckily there's been state funding to fund specific positions for connectivity purposes. So with that, we have a person that's all she does is strictly look at those plans and make sure that all of those developments are considering those things that you just mentioned. So it's getting better. It hasn't been great in the past, but we are recognizing how important it is to inform these. I feel like we're always one step behind. Caltrans, their projects are already in the works 20 years ago by the time we get involved. And we were fortunate enough to convince them to do the Camino wildlife underpass. I don't know if you guys know about that, but there is a wildlife underpass. And we got in there last minute and we were able to get the funding and push for mitigation for the Camino project. And they are using it. Yay! We have cameras up, and those deer are using that. So yes, we're getting better, and we do have red lights come up when things are happening in counties. So yeah, yeah.
Just to follow on a little bit with Carol's question. So for these two new projects, who was the person you said that would have provided that insight on those projects relative to wildlife?
So she's asking who was the person that informed those projects. We have our habitat conservation biologist, Caitlin Oswalt, is probably the one that commented on their environmental impact report or their CEQA document for those. And then Sarah Holm is our new connectivity biologist, and she just got that position back a few months ago. So, but she's been involved in that a lot. So she's in close contact with the HabCon people to make sure there's mitigation for a lot of this stuff. So, yeah.
I hate to bring it up, but there was that young man killed outside of Georgetown, which was surprising because humans aren't usually what they eat. What is the official take on that?
It's hard to say because it was a perfectly healthy lion. Usually when we have incidents like that, they always do a necropsy and we find out like it was sick or something was wrong with the lion, but that was a healthy lion, and I think it was a younger lion. And so it could have been, a newly subadult dispersed lion, and I don't know. I mean, it could have been just a more aggressive, genetically aggressive lion than others that are more elusive. I mean, it's.
So you're as flummoxed as everyone.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because those boys did everything correctly. That's what we tell the public to do. So, yeah. Oh, the question was about the fatality that happened in El Dorado County and what was going on with that lion. Why did that happen? So, yeah.
So did you say if you do find a stash like up in a tree, is that usually a mountain lion?
They don't stash in trees.
Or bushes? Okay.
They stash on the ground and then they pull like pine needles or brush over the carcass. Sometimes when they're in an enclosure killing livestock, they don't have time, like they get scared away before they bury it. But you could see drag marks to a fence where they want to get it over, or you'll see hair on a fence. That's how.
Anything that does stash up in the higher off the ground?
Not that I'm aware of. No. Bobcats will do, the covering too, but yeah, I don't know. All right, yeah.
So I want to go back to fencing and mountain lions. So I just want to address the issue of people wanting to build fences to keep mountain lions out, but especially in residential areas. So where there's trees, there's no fence that can keep a mountain lion out. It doesn't, because they can jump up the tree and then down to the yard. So how are people supposed to think about things like that? I know when they have animal husbandry, they have to go through the ag department to get permits to make those razor wire fences and everything, but what can residents do, actually?
So she's asking what residents can do for fencing mountain lions out, and what should they be thinking about? And you said more, but so we usually tell people, because lions don't typically like to be out in the open, like removing brush from playground areas, because a lot of people are worried about their kids playing in their yards now. And but if you're removing brush, lions don't really typically like to be out in the open, so they're going to be hiding in brush. If the brush is close, then that's not good. So so those kind of things. But Kathy was mentioning that even if you have fencing, if you have trees, lions can climb trees and hop into other trees and into yards through trees. So that's always things to be thinking about when you're trying to exclude the wildlife. And then don't feed deer because you're inviting a grocery store into your backyard. And that's been a problem too, because you have a bunch of deer in your yard, and some of you have deer in your yard because you have deer in your yard, but don't perpetuate that. So did that answer your question? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because a lot of people are thinking that they can build a 6 or 7 foot high fence and it's
Yeah. Right. Okay, are we on to bears? All right. How are you guys doing? Okay, you good? Okay. I'm not putting you to sleep. Black bears. So we only have black bears in California. We do not have grizzly bears or brown bears. So a lot of people don't realize that. But our black bears can come in all different colors. They can come in like really black, blonde, cinnamon, brown, so they're all different colors. So the biology, they're crepuscular, so they're active in the evenings through the night into the early morning hours, typically. They are bedding during the heat of the day. Their mating season is in June, so if you see more activity in June, there's male bears coming in to try to breed with females during that time. And that's also the time that they're kicking out their yearlings. So we get a lot of calls about orphaned bears, and a lot of times it's just yearlings that mom has said, go away, I'm gonna find a boyfriend, and you need to leave. They only breed every other year. Their cubs stay with them through over 18 months, and then they kick them out and then they breed again. And so they have a delayed implantation, so they will get bred, and then the embryo won't implant until the body knows what condition it's in. So sometimes they'll just abort the embryo if they're like not getting enough food source to go into hibernation, or if they're doing really well on garbage, then they'll have 4 or 5 cubs. So that's something that's unique with black bears. They have an innate caution towards human. It's amazing when you go in the wild and see a wild bear behaving like a wild bear, because they usually are afraid of you and run away. But I'm going to talk about what habituation has done to these animals. Their diet, a lot of people are surprised, but majority of their diet is grass. I mean, they're huge animals and they have to have a lot of calories. Can you imagine how much grass they have to eat? And that's majority of the year what they're eating. When they come out of hibernation in the spring, that's what they're getting. And we don't really, like in our areas, we don't have elk, so we're not doing elk fawns, but yeah, they'll eat deer and also kill. In the summer, all the berries are coming out now, so they're wild bears are eating berries. And then in this fall, they do this hyperphagia is what we call it, and it's this like massive like gorging of food to prepare for hibernation. And so they will eat a lot of calories. So we always get ramped up conflict calls during this time because they're looking for food and trying to get fat. The bears eat everything. There is not one thing a bear does not eat, including trash and plastic bags and various other diapers. They love diapers. For hibernation, sows and the dependent young, they go in first and come out last, and boars are late and early. And it's based on food availability. So if you see a bear out in the winter, it's not uncommon. If there's food out there, they will get up. I mean, they'll slow down a little bit. That's why our activity decreases in the winter, but our snow levels aren't as large anymore. And so if there's food, then they will definitely not even hibernate if they don't have to. There's bears in Tahoe that stay up all winter long because they're getting constant access to food. You want to ask your question now?
Well, just quickly,
Yeah.
Could you say there's an elevation level that they would not hibernate at, say, 3,000 feet, but they would in a higher elevation?
I think it depends on what the situation is for them. Like in Southern California, those bears don't. Obviously, the sows are hibernating because that's when they have their young. They have their young in the dens, so they go into hibernation. But if they're not having cubs that year and they have yearlings in the den, they will come out. I've been even on helicopter surveys for deer in the middle of winter, and I've seen bear up and running around. So I think it just depends on food availability, really, because they do slow down a lot. And bears have this amazing ability during hibernation to heal themselves. There's something miraculous that happens to their bodies to be able to heal major injuries during hibernation. So that's another unique thing about bears. Okay, habituation. How did we get here? What happened? So this is an example of a vehicle that a bear got caught into. You do not want this to happen to your car. There's beehives. They do kill livestock. This is Tahoe. They get very used to being around people and getting food from people and not getting a negative consequence from that. So yeah, how in the world did we get here? So why bears enter town? I don't know. How would I play the video from here? I'm not sure. I don't know how to point it out. But anyways, that picture is a video of a bear on a deck. So they enter town because of overpopulation. There's a lot of bears, and I'm specifically speaking about Tahoe in this point. Overpopulation, competition, following their noses, they can smell miles away. So your garbage that you were talking about, a bear can, and they're very opportunistic animals too. They're just wanting food. And so if they smell something that smells good, then they're gonna investigate. Bird feeders are a huge problem, and unsecured trash. And obviously in the Tahoe Basin, you have millions of visitors, many that don't speak English, that we're trying to educate about trash management up there. And so it's kind of a losing battle, unfortunately, for these animals. So a habituated bear, food conditioned bear, we define it as a bear that shows little to no overt reaction to people as a result of being repeatedly exposed to anthropogenic stimuli without substantial consequence. And so in this video, there's these people in the house are videoing this animal. And I wonder if I could play it if I walk down here. Yeah. Okay. We'll see. Oh, yeah. Maybe not. Nope. Oh, well. Anyways, there's people in this house that are watching this bear, and it's a young bear, come on their deck, and they've obviously have small children, and they're laughing, and oh, isn't he cute? Oh my gosh, he got my margarita. That's so funny. Okay, that is not how you want to behave with this bear. This bear is one that could potentially correct its behavior, right? They should have been screaming and yelling at that animal and like making a big fuss over it being on the deck and not filming it to scare it away, so that bear would be like, oh my gosh, that was really scary. I don't ever want to be on a deck like that again. So that's something that we really want to train people about. I mean, it's cool to see bears and video them and get selfies with them, but we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to make them wild and keep them wild. And by doing that, we need them to be afraid of us.
This guy's having a great time.
And so that video is...
Okay, he's like, Mama.
Oh, there it goes.
Mama's my margarita. Oh, my God. Yes, dear.
We're gonna have a drunk bear. Look, he's licking it off the deck now. He's licking my margarita off the deck.
Good thing we finished it. Basically. Yeah. I got your hamburger.
Look how close it's getting to the window too.
When that car drive by, it didn't look like a bear.
I didn't know why he was
I'm
stopping
still hungry.
and talking to us, but he was telling us there was a bear interested in our dinner.
Well, and you can hear her saying, like, to the kids, oh, look, we're talking to it. Isn't this cute? So what are they teaching their kids to do with bears, right? So, no. So this is a really important slide because there's a bear behavioral ladder of progression that happens, right? So a bear smells something interesting, follows its nose, food smells good, but people might be dangerous. So I'm gonna wait till dark to explore. Gobbles up bird seed on the ground and knocks down the bird feeder and eats it a lot and then runs back into the woods because it's still afraid of people. It doesn't really want to be around people. Come back a few nights later, feeder is full again. Chow down, follow nose onto deck. Jackpot, find garbage by back door, open, scatter, and eat, score. A day's worth of calories, plan to return often to this new food bonanza, amble back into the woods. Explore the neighborhood, get much farther, much faster than you would foraging in the woods. Start coming during the day since a food supply seems endless and humans appear to be harmless. Find open garage, knock over refrigerator, eat pizza and ice cream, score a week's worth of calories, yay. Do enough damage to get reported, make the news. Start approaching people looking for food, get trapped, ear tagged, and hauled away. Find your way back, yummy treats. So when we relocate animals, they even like 70 miles away, they will return to where they came from within a week. It's crazy. So relocation of bears does not work. It never does. And then, so find your way back, yummy treats, still they're pick up where you left off. Scare someone, putting out the trash, get labeled a threat to human safety, get killed way before my time. That's the ladder that happens. And so humans have a very significant responsibility when dealing with bears in our neighborhoods. So it is sad, but that's what happens. And a bear that's habituated is not, you can't take it to rehab. You can't rehabilitate that kind of behavior once it's gotten used to getting that food source. And in Tahoe, some bears, that's the only food source they ever get in their lifetime. So this is what happens. This is this behavioral pattern. They go into an occupied home. This is actually a home where the bear broke the window and got bloodied paw, and actually turned on the stove and almost started a fire in this cabin here. So they go into unoccupied homes, and then they get rewards, and then they start it leads to going into occupied homes. And in our foothill communities, this is so very rare that they go into occupied homes, but it will happen eventually because people aren't doing their due diligence. So then they go into houses with people inside. They don't care. They see the refrigerator and they'll walk in or break the door down. This is actually, it's a video that I can't get to work, but this gentleman had his garage door open. He was working in his garage. He broke a wine bottle over this bear's head. It came back to try to get into his garage to get food, would not leave the area at all. And then this was, I don't know, this was in the news, the Sac Bee, but this individual in the middle of the night came down the stairs and encountered a bear in her cabin in Tahoe and got severe stitches on her face. And this happens more than you think. This doesn't get reported very often, but there's definitely incidents more than you think about encountering animals in Tahoe especially. So once habituated, bears don't leave town. The females have cubs in town, and it creates a generation of animals not cautious of humans. Male cubs grow up and disperse further. Female cubs don't disperse and tend to stay in town. Growing up to raise the next generation of cubs to do the same, because that's the only way they know how to forage. And then there's less competition, smaller home ranges, and a higher density of bears, and that's exactly what we have in the Tahoe Basin, unfortunately. This bear right here is the famous chevron bear. I don't know if you guys remember that. There are all these famous bears in the news. This gentleman had a birthday cake here, and he thought it was funny to go sit by this bear. And this was like a 500-pound bear. It was a very old bear. This is Kings Beach. And we ended up trapping this guy and relocating him, but it didn't end well. So this is with our DNA. So every time we get property damage in Tahoe now, we collect DNA to get individuals and also to recognize which bears are doing damage and when and where. And we also can find out relatedness of these animals. So this is the Tahoe Keys. These are animals that we've gotten DNA tags from. And so this bear has 3 females, so that's 3 more females having cubs in that area, right? They don't leave the area, they stay in that home range. So it just exponentially increases. So these are all property damage hits, and these are all related bears. So this is 2021 and 2023, where this bear had 3 females one year, then it had 2, a male and a female, and then it had 3 males. And so all these cubs and yearlings start getting hits of property damage too. So now we can prove that this is happening. We always kind of anecdotally thought it was, but with DNA we can prove it. So some of our DNA data, so far, or since the end of 2023, we've identified 258 individual bears. This is not the population. This is just the bears that we've gotten DNA from. So different houses, different trapping efforts that we've had. And then this is kind of a breakdown of males to females. There's 298 locations with home invasions. And what we did was we put it in a spreadsheet, and we found out that there's 16, out of 258, there's 16 repeat offenders. So 16 bears are causing 55% of the damage. So if we could potentially remove these animals, then it would be healthier for the entire population, but also, help people. The people are living like prisoners in Tahoe. So it's quite a story. This is our conflict data. This is just calls we've gotten and home invasions and permits issued in 2022 and 2023. And it's, yeah, this is Tahoe, yeah. And this is just some of the examples, but quite a lot of calls, and so some of the laws that we have, bears are considered big game animals. There is a hunt season for them, and it runs from the deer opener in August until 1,700 bears are taken, or December 31st. It's unlawful to use bait or dogs, and you can't take a sow with cubs. This is going to change soon. There was currently a new bear management plan that was drafted and put out for public review like last month. We should get a finalized bear management plan where they're going to break California into bear conservation units. And so it won't be a statewide bear hunting take. It will be based on these bear conservation units. So we're changing a little bit of how we're managing the hunting of these bear populations. Only Fish and Game employee or Fish and Wildlife employees can validate tags and pull the teeth. With deer, you can get your deer validated by police officers, firefighters, postmasters. But with bear, only an employee of ours can. It is legal, and I didn't mention this for mountain lions, it is legal to protect your person and property. So you can protect yourself, and if you do end up shooting or killing a mountain lion or a bear, you just have to call our department within 24 hours and report it, and then a warden will come out and investigate. So, and then you can ask for a depredation permit for these animals. So before I go into that. All right, bears, questions, yes?
I do see hunters with dogs in their pickups. They've got tracking dogs, so that's illegal now?
Well, there's trappers that have dogs legally for the county.
These are just hunters.
Okay, so yes, that is illegal.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
How many bears were euthanized last year?
I don't have that number off the top of my head. I'm not sure. It's so we have two mechanisms where we can euthanize a problem bear. One is through the depredation permit process, where somebody has damage and they prove that damage, and then we give them the permit, which gives them the authority to take the animal. Or when there's, some of these bears have broken into over 50 homes. So when we have a bear that has continued that behavior, it becomes what we call a management bear, and then our agency will give us our management will give us the authority to take the animal. So, yeah.
A possible solution at this moment for putting our garbage, our food waste into our green bin is don't put it in there until the day the trash can picks it up.
Also, freezing it can help. Like if you have a block of compost that's frozen, it's not as smelly. It's not as much of an attractant, so that may help as well. And also, even in your garbage cans, cleaning out your cans that you use, just rinsing stuff out so that you're just trying to eliminate any kind of smell. And I don't know how often they pick up the compost. I heard it was every 2 weeks and not every week. So that stuff's rotting in there for a while, and that does end up being an attractant for sure. So that's something that our wildlife biologists were just so, we were very disheartened by that regulation because we knew it would cause a problem, not just with bears, but with raccoons, with all the wildlife that get into trash. So, yeah. Any other questions about bears? Yeah.
How often is the bear blamed for getting into garbage when actually it could be raccoons or coyotes or anything else? How often does the bear take the blame?
It happens. Oh, she asked, how often does a bear take the blame for getting into trash when it's actually coyotes or raccoons? Yeah, it definitely happens. But our agency doesn't just garbage, trash, disturbance doesn't qualify for a permit to kill an animal. Like, people have to have the responsibility of taking care of their trash. And so yeah, if it's just garbage disturbance, we don't intervene. That's something that
Is there a way to tell if it's been a bear or?
Poop. Honestly, bears usually defecate where they're at, like what they're doing, where they're working. That's why, you know, when we go to these mortality kills or mortality responses to deer collar, whenever I come upon bones in my collar, if there's bear scat just all over the place, then I know that either the bear scavenged on it or stole the kill from a mountain lion. So yeah, they leave little packages. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
How far down have you spotted deer?
Deer?
I mean, sorry.
Bear? They've been in Sacramento. They've been in Orangevale. What they'll do is they'll follow the American River canyons. And you've seen news media, they've been in Davis. And that's just a bear in the wrong place. You know, it's usually we just trap those and relocate it back into its natural habitat. But sometimes, yeah, they travel down. There's quite a lot of activity in rescue, lots of activity. So yeah, they're moving down the hill. Yeah.
Have bears ever killed horses?
I don't know of any in my areas. I can't say if that's never happened anywhere else, like in the United States, where there's bears.
I just meant locally.
Yeah, locally, I've never heard of it. No. Yeah. Usually, horse injuries happen when a bear is in the area and the horse freaks out and gets torn up by fencing. That's usually what we're responding to. People think it's a lion, but usually it's just the horse is freaking out and gets injured that way. So, yeah. Okay, how are we doing? I have one more species to talk about, and then I'll be done. So you good? Good. Okay. So, last but not least, the beaver. I have to talk about the beaver. Okay, beaver biology. The adults weigh between 40 to 80 pounds. They live in colonies comprised of one mating pair and the young of the year, so the kits, yearlings, and juveniles. So when you see a beaver house or lodge, that's probably what's happening inside of it. Colonies are in burrowed banks or beaver lodges, and the burrowed banks obviously becomes a problem when they're burrowing into levees. So in the Delta, we have a lot of issues with beavers burrowing. By the age of 2 to 3, juveniles disperse to find habitat and establish a new colony, and they travel up to 30 miles through water or 12 miles over land. And they have one litter, about 6 kits per year, and they live an average of 12 years. So they're herbivores. A lot of people think that they eat fish, but they don't. They eat trees and branches, and their front incisors continue to grow, so that's why they have to chew on big trees. Those big trees that they're chewing on aren't necessarily for building dams. It's more for keeping their teeth down and short. They build dams to slow water to create ponds to avoid predators. That's the whole reason why they have that type of behavior. You've heard that beavers don't like running water. It's because they're trying to keep their safe haven. They want big ponds, deep ponds, and underneath the ponds, they'll burrow out runs so they can swim faster in these runs. And then they'll also make runs up the banks so that water fills up with them, so they never have to be on land. They want to be in the water because they're much more agile in the water than they are on land. So if the dams are torn down, they can be rebuilt in 24 hours. They are amazing, amazing engineers. And they're more agile in water. And then, so they're nature's most efficient engineers, and they don't even need a lake and stream bed alteration permit. So that's why we're using them more. So here's some examples of some beaver conflict. This is in El Dorado Hills. It's a major industrial and residential development in the past 20 to 30 years, and it's increasing, as you all know. Previously, there was an intermittent flowing creek that went through that area. And then what happened was everybody started living there and had lawns, and then they're watering their lawns, and that drainage creates more water year-round in those areas, and then it creates perfect habitat for beaver. So the beaver population is established and flourishing, and now there's conflict. So this is, I think this is in the industrial park where there's some ponding happening, and they block culverts, they start flooding roads and trails, they fall trees, and there's been some houses in Serrano that trees have been taken down in their backyards, and people, you know, and they're large trees. So that's kind of the conflict that's happening in El Dorado Hills area. And then some communities down there are partnering with American River Conservancy and the Occidental Arts and Ecology Center and the Sierra Wildlife Coalition to install pond levelers down there and maintain those pond levelers. The pond levelers are a little bit of a commitment to install and maintain, because the beavers are constantly trying to plug everything. Culverts, they're wanting to plug it all up. So if you have somebody that you can partner with to maintain those, that's great. But this is in the industrial park too. This is a problem for EID because this is like a sewer tank, and it's, if the beavers start messing with that, then it becomes like a public safety issue. And the public safety too is, you know, with eroding roads and bridges and all that other stuff. So there's a lot of tension with that as well. So in 2022, the governor gave a bunch of money towards our new beaver restoration relocation program. And the steps that were required for this to happen was establishing goals, assembling appropriate partners, pursuing a broad educational campaign, because some people love beavers, some people hate them, identifying suitable beaver habitat to move beavers. You have to access a population and evaluate sites, determine appropriate progression for delivery to sites. You have to interact with landowners to establish dialogue. Ranchers don't necessarily love beavers because they clog up their irrigation systems. You have to pursue the capture, provide a facility for secure, healthy short-term husbandry, because they have to be disease tested before they can be released. This is extremely stressful on the animals because they have to be housed and they're taken from their natural place. So they get pretty stressed out. And then you have to consider the data, prepare the release site, deliver the beavers, and then monitor those beavers. And so we in El Dorado County just had our Cameron Park Lake beavers rehomed to Plumas County. And this is the picture of those. Many of you might have heard about that. So this is a fairly new program. There's only been, I think, 3 total relocations. One of them was not successful, but they're going to keep trying different areas. So. And that is the end of my presentation.
Yeah. Are beavers natural to this area?
The question is, are beavers natural to this area? That is a little bit controversial too, like whether beavers were native to the Sierra Nevada region. And so there's conflicting research out there about that. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Thank you very much for your time. I took a lot of it, so I appreciate you being attentive. Thank you.